do you think that, I mean, we typically see, and there's been a lot of reports around it as well, that CISOs usually last around 18 months within an organization, maybe not even that long at all. Do you think that this is, a lot of the time it's down to burnout, overworked, and just basically just too much responsibility? That's the perceived reason, but this is an interesting angle. Do you think that it's potentially because they might just be mismatched in the wrong type of company culture, in the wrong position for that type of CISO?
Yeah, I definitely think that's it. And I think the thing about a CISO's role is it's so challenging because there's so many different draws on the things that they need to be paying attention to. So you've got your business drivers, things like mergers and acquisition and regulatory requirements are all part of those business drivers. But then you've got technology drivers as well, the speed at which digital transformation is happening, and ML and AI and all these other things that they've got to contend with on that side. And then you've got the threat landscape in general. And the only thing that's predictable about that is the fact that it's completely unpredictable. So I think there's all these different draws on a CISO's focus. And I think the difficulty is, I think often when a CISO goes into a role, I think they often get seen as, heading up the department of no and the department of slow. So often with all these different business challenges that the business is trying to move through, in order to gain competitive advantage, they're getting told, actually, no, we need to take a step back. We need to make sure that things are right from a security perspective. And we need to make sure that we're doing the right things to ensure that the business is, taking on as much risk as it's prepared to take on. And I think that challenge of, I guess, really making sure that they're still enabling the business to function at the same time as protecting the business, I think is one where it takes a lot of, I guess, understanding from a CISO's perspective as to where the business is within their cybersecurity posture, making sure that they're going into an environment and they're picking an environment that suits their own values. So some businesses might be way less mature in terms of their security posture. And I think in those businesses, a CISO is going to face a lot more challenge than they would necessarily going into a business where perhaps the environment is a lot more mature and there's not such a kickback from the business as to getting involved in, doing the things that they need to do from a cybersecurity perspective. But maybe there, the values that might be more useful would be, things like vision and innovation, things that are going to actually, help move that business on further from a cybersecurity standpoint, rather than bringing it up to speed in the first place. And I think that's a big reason why I think, it's very easy for businesses to turn around in 18 months and go, look, this isn't working. Let's pick another route. Let's go another direction.
And so when you're working with these up and coming, I mean, I'm assuming when you're working with these professionals that are looking into getting into the CISO role, whether they've got previous experience or not, well, actually, that's probably a different question itself. But do you find yourself kind of fitting candidates for picking candidates for specific roles based upon their experience, not primarily as a CISO, but if they've got good qualities that would fit an organization? How would you, through your network, how do you kind of assess their capabilities and then place them in the best roles? So if they were a kind of an up and coming CISO, should we say, someone that you could see could do really well in that particular role, maybe not with very little experience, what kind of how do you put those in that position? How do you kind of fit them up with the right companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about getting them to ask the right questions. So firstly, being honest with yourself, taking a look at yourself and understanding, okay, from my perspective, what sort of an environment is going to suit me? And then making sure that they ask those right questions. So, where does the function sit, for example? Is it a reporting line into a CTO? Is it reporting directly into the board? Is it mid-level IT management, audit, legal, all these different things that give you an indication of where that department might sit in terms of maturity. And then you can begin to make a judgment on, okay, is this going to be an environment that suits me? I think looking at or asking questions around the level of cross-functional liaison that goes on within the organization. So, for example, HR, I think, is a massively important department for CISOs to be speaking to, because they understand the sorts of personas that they're dealing with throughout the organization. They might have a better understanding of what that organization's security persona is. So is it an oblivious persona where people don't genuinely have an idea at all about cybersecurity and can really care less about it? Or is it more of a gracious persona where people are actually glad that there's a cybersecurity department in there, protecting them, telling them what they need to do? And I think it's understanding the environment that you're going into to give yourself the best chance of picking an environment that's going to be right for you. Because we really do see the range of CISOs. We see those that are phenomenal at communicating, and we see those that are awful. And that's not to say that those that don't perhaps have that communication skill set right up there aren't going to be good CISOs. It just means that there's different environments for different types of CISO. And I think it's learning that, it's understanding where you're going to be the best fit that I think is important. And that only comes really from asking questions at interview and throughout the process.
Yeah, I think that my opinion is that the communication is absolutely key. We've had a number of CISOs on this show, and it's really being able to communicate, justification for, let's just say, new technologies, but really being able to explain to the board why, if they're asking for a specific budget, for example, for a particular piece of technology, being able to have that communication skill to translate that into how that's going to help solve a business challenges and effectively make them money, right?
Yeah.
But then equally as well, they're going to need to get everyone else on board to follow these security protocols or processes that they're planning on implementing. So I'd say that massively the kind of, I hate it when people call them this, but soft skills are becoming more important than ever to be successful in these roles.
I think that's the crux of it. I think it's such a human role, and I think it's going into a role, and it's not just the communication skills, it's speaking the right language. I think a lot of CISOs can be very technical, but where it's a very new C-suite position, all the other people in the C-suite, they're coming from a business strategic background. When you start speaking to them in a tech language, it completely puts them off. And then you're down to the decisions you're making on vendors and external factors as to, are you going to be judged as successful or not in a role? And that tends to be why 18 months, 2 years is a time frame that's typical of a project turnaround, and they're sort of judged on that. Whereas if they've got the right communication and language skills to actually look at this and not go into the role and think about the technology vision and goals, but the business and strategic vision and goals and the company direction that they're moving and what the company goals are, I think that should be the focus. And when you go into those board meetings, you're able then to build more of a partnership, because you're showing you understand how the tech piece sits and how it's driving the overall business vision and how you're getting to delivering those business goals, and obviously protecting them from those ongoing threats. And it's the CISOs that do that and explain things in a language that the rest of the board understand are the ones that tend to stay longer term in roles.
Yeah, I think we refer to this in our business as the tapping problem. I can't remember which book it's from now, but if you're tapping a song, you've got a song in your head and you're tapping it, it makes perfect sense to you. But if the other person doesn't know the song you're thinking about, they have got no. It just sounds like randomness and doesn't really add any value to what you're trying to do.